Hi.
We are live.
Okay, we are here. Let's see. So, hello.
We are
Hello.
here.
Um, we are, this is our first Global Health Minute. It's our first time streaming. For those of you who are new to VoxFem, VoxFem, you can check out more at voxfem.org. That's VoxFem.org. And our mission is to find and feature women singer-songwriters, visual artists, filmmakers, and change makers from every nation and occupied territory on Earth. And as part of featuring those change makers in health, this year we're launching this Global Health Minute. So I'm Dr. Annette D'Armata, and this is VoxFem Global Health Minute. And since yay, and since we never follow any rules, it's not a minute. It's going to be a lot of minutes. So we
Yes.
just thought we'd mess with you like that and call it a Global Health Minute. And once we got you here, we just keep talking to you. That's how we do.
That's how we.
So, so we will begin each time by acknowledging the original caretakers of this land. Our first broadcast was a joint venture with Indigenous Ways with Elena Higgins and Tosh Terry. I want to acknowledge them, and we want to also, as we move on, not only are we hoping you learn something, but we're learning as we go along. So we want to acknowledge where we're broadcasting here in San Antonio, the Estocna, the Carrizo Come Crudo, and also the Coahuiltecan Nation groups of people. And as well, this is the homeland of the Chicana, Chicanx, Chicano Nation. And we're very grateful to be here. We are honored that this is our first interview, other than the talk I gave to kind of kick it off. This is our first interview with Dr. Tursha Hamilton. Let's all give her a round of applause out there. Dr. Tursha Hamilton is here with us. And you know what? I should record, right? I should record. This is
Yes.
the learning part of the program. Yes. Okay. And that way we'll have it for
Process.
later. This is going to be on Facebook Live, and we're going to be able to put it on YouTube and all the other, and Instagram and all the other parts. So we're very honored to have Dr. Tursha Hamilton, and she just told me she has a little extra time today. So I'm going to take a little extra time to introduce her because she is one of my favorite people, and I'm a big admirer of hers. So I can say things she won't say about herself. And who's going to stop me anyway? So, Dr. Tursha is a naturopathic physician, author, speaker, and educator. She held previous positions as faculty and attending physician at NUHS Whole Health Center in Lombard, Illinois, and at Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine and Health Sciences, where we both went to school, where she treated all manner of acute and chronic conditions, but has a passion for treating diabetes, obesity, and GI complaints. Her focus is to employ the most natural therapies available to stimulate the body's internal healing while fostering new habits. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. New habits and traditions that will produce and maintain the most optimal health possible. Prior to medical school, Dr. Hamilton studied biology pre-med at Xavier University in Louisiana and cellular biology, exercise physiology at the University of Memphis. She's the author of a lot of books. Okay, and I hope, and if I miss one, we'll talk about it. But she's the author of Practically Healthy: Step-by-Step Guide to Better Health, Practically Healthy: Roadmap to Success, Take Vacations Daily. I need to read that one over and over again.
Oh,
Learning to Live More and Stress Less. And she is the co-author of Three Dimensions of Hot and Spicy Relationships. Okay, I call that one Spice Up Your Relationship: Mind, Body, and Spirit. And this was released last year and has really has the necessity of being in every curriculum and in many spaces. You need to have the Black family Health-O-Pedia. It's a volume that she's an author, a co-author, and got many other Black doctors and healthcare practitioners to have a really badly needed conversation on and with encyclopedic knowledge about what's needed there. She is the host of the currently running, so pay attention, right now, there's a currently running completely online Healing Hypertension Holistic Health Summit. I'm signed up. I'm jumping in as I can. It's completely free. So many of these things cost thousands of dollars. It's a great resource. And she'll tell you how you can get on now and how you may be able to get on later if you've missed parts of it so far. She hosted the Practically Healthy Life show, which produced, I know I listened to dozens of them, and I think there were over 100 excellent interviews with doctors and healers across the spectrum. I was very honored to be one of them. We had a talk about anxiety, and that was many years ago now. I think she's talking about having a podcast again. So we'll talk to her about it.
Yeah, thinking about it.
Yes. So I want to just give a disclaimer. It's important to talk about, conflicts of interest. So if we talk about any products or anything I'm not getting anything from that, but I'll tell you what I am getting from it. I'm getting immense joy from seeing, I can't say I'm unbiased because I love Dr. Tursha Hamilton. She's a colleague and a friend. We overlapped at medical school. I think we graduated a year apart. So we had 6 months. We had some classes together, and I'm not unbiased in any way, shape, or form. I'm not even going to try to act like I am. And I hope when you're done, you'll see why I feel that way. So welcome, Tursha. Welcome, Dr. Hamilton.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. I'm always honored and excited to talk to you, and then to talk about the stuff that we love is double joy. So I'm excited.
And hopefully you'll forgive me if I don't know where to look at some points. This is very new to me, so I'm learning. But I think one of the things it's important to do is just throw yourself. Do things. It's okay to learn while you're doing them. I think that's one of the things that we want people to know, even about your health, right? You don't have to get it all right.
Just about to say that whether you're talking about business, you're talking about families, relationships, or you're talking about your health, the biggest thing is to start imperfectly.
Yes.
Because the hardest part is to start.
Yes.
So if you start imperfectly, you give yourself time, space to actually grow as you go, as opposed to waiting for the perfect time, waiting for the perfect situation, because that may never show up. And then you've gotten days, months, years, decades that you haven't done anything when you could have been working on it and improving as you go. So absolutely, you'll look back on this one and be like, yeah, I should have. But you're 100 episodes in, so who cares?
Yeah, exactly. And the gems, you get the gems come through. It's like, so what if it's not? And I'll just start talking about you this way. So that is the thing that has been so inspirational, and what I admire so much. You didn't name your podcast and your book the Perfectly Healthy Life Show. You called it the Practically Healthy Life Show because you're a realist. When I always say, you are amazing at meeting people where they're at, and it's not just about meeting people where they're at. I think maybe some people might think, oh, well, but will you get poorer outcomes if you don't push harder or whatever? No, in fact, there's a huge gap between the literature and what things are supposed to look like and real life, and even more gaps as we're starting to find out, that we don't have just a homogenous or a one society. We have many societies, and we need to figure out how we can get the best outcomes for everybody. So not perfectly healthy.
No, practically, right. Practically. One of the things that I used to tell students, actually I still do, students, actually anybody. One of the things that I try to tell people is you have to speak the language that the other person understands.
Yes.
So regardless of what my message is, if I am saying something and you don't understand me, whether it is literally I'm speaking in English and you speak Portuguese, or I speak the King's English and you speak, New Orleans Southern dialect, or you are a churchgoer and I'm using worldly terms, whatever it is,
Yes.
I need to be able to code switch so that I can reach you where you are. And that's important. Like that is literally being practical. And once I can meet you where you are, then you're more responsive to what I have to say, and you're more likely to latch on and start doing it.
Yes.
That's the practical part of it, right?
Yes.
That's the whole practical part of it. It's like I can push you harder if I can know how to talk to you. I'll give you an example. I love talking about my dad because my dad, well, it is Father's Day, but I like talking about it anyway. My dad has been my ride or die since the beginning, since we started medical school. Did you ever meet my dad?
I did meet your dad. Yes, I've seen your dad.
Personality that you really can't forget, right?
Yes.
Well,
Happy Father's Day to him, by the way.
right. I'll tell him when I see him.
Yes.
So he's always been in my corner. And, whenever I tell him something, he'll listen and he'll take it in, right? But there have been, he still has known me all my life.
Yeah.
And, there's something about knowing somebody all their lives that it's hard for you to meet them where they are right now.
Yeah.
Right? So even with the person who's like most on my team, one day I was saying something and I wasn't quite getting through to him the way that I wanted to. And I remembered he's a church going man. Let me throw some Bible scripture, Jesus in it. And I was able to frame the thing in a way he said, oh, that's what you meant. Yes.
Yes.
I was able to reach him where he was. And so he
Yes.
was connected with that information a lot easier.
Yes. That is so important. And I've watched you do that. I've watched you, when we graduated, social media was just starting.
Yeah.
And so we all kind of went our separate ways, and it was a lot, and we had our own recovery to do from that, and then and then starting a practice or residency, or where everybody went different directions. And so you and I stayed in contact, but not regular contact, but when social media became more of a thing, of course, I saw you just do that, just throw yourself in there. And people were still trying to figure out how much to talk about on social media, and I watched you just talk to me, tell me what you need, tell me what it is. And it was very moving. It was very moving to see, because people aren't used to a doctor asking them that, or caring. Like, there was not that space. They're just used to going to the doctor, being seen very briefly, and like, you have to meet the doctor where they're at.
Right.
Their schedule, next person's coming, move it, and it doesn't matter if you speak a different language, or you're a churchgoer, or you have you need a translator, or many of those things are only recently have they become important. And even now we know that there's way further code switching that needs to happen. There's much more that needs to be learned, that healthcare practitioners have to meet people, not the other way around.
Right.
And you've been doing that. You have been building that over this past decade. And so I know we've already thrown any kind of like questions or script out the window, which is I love. So I just want to ask, you had mentioned that you might your podcast, which was really excellent. You mentioned that you might be starting that back up again. So tell us about that.
I'm still trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing. So, like, I did a podcast for 2 years and it was awesome. It got to be a bit much. I'm the producer, I'm the star, I'm the social media, I'm doing all the roles.
Yeah.
And it kind of got burned out. And so what is it going to look like? I still don't know. Like, right now, it's just bubbling back up in me to want to do it again.
Nice.
But I'm not sure. I don't know that it's going to look very different from before, where, sometimes I'll do episodes alone and just kind of talk. And sometimes I will get my friends and colleagues and people I meet, strangers, and who have a story to tell, and get them on the show and just tell their story, whether it's their personal experience or their professional experience or some combination.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's going to be something like that.
I love it. You know, I was saying, throwing the things out the window. I mean, VoxFem was supposed to be just a podcast. That's how we started out, and it is barely it's everything but a podcast. But you know, but it's been a response to everything that we feel like is needed at the moment, and so I think that's the dance. I think it's a beautiful dance. I think this way of kind of announcing how something's going to be and then following these strict rules. It's the same thing we're saying about health. But then what happens is like somebody dies and it's like you're going to be on this diet that you just said you were going to be on. It's like, no, you have to adapt, right? I've been, I think that kind of ability to see how all, you know, whether it's society, individual health, or business ventures, big ideas, you always have to do that, right? You have to kind of adapt to whatever's going on instead of these announcements. It's going to be this way, this way, this way, and then life comes along and tells you something different.
You know, make the big announcement.
Yeah, but you don't have
to
to stick to it. You don't have to stick to it. Mm-hmm.
You know, Bruce Lee once said, "Flow like water."
Yeah.
Water is one of the most powerful forces on earth, but it's one of the most gentle, right? You don't
Yes.
realize
Yes.
how powerful water is until you start paying attention to it. But it's powerful. But if you think about it, water has form, but it doesn't have a form, and it can
Mm-hmm.
flow with wherever the stream takes it. And so if we can be more flexible like that, it's a lot easier. So you have these rivers, you have these streams, you have these plans that you want to follow. That's a great guideline, you know, for most of us. Um, but if you need to pivot, do that because it doesn't always serve you to be extremely strict.
Yeah.
Sometimes it does, right? Sometimes it's life or death, or it's I can only do one thing one way. Do
Mm-hmm.
it. But
Yeah.
if that being that rigid is distracting, then figure out how to pivot and how to make it work for you while still following the flow of the river,
Yeah.
and getting to where you want to go.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what you're showing people by example. So I love that. And if the river happens to take you back to that podcast of in any form, I will be following and watching because you really did bring together a wonderful collection of, as I say, like people who practice the art and science of medicine, whether that is, you know, naturopathic physicians, MDs, DOs, nurse practitioners, traditional healers, um, people who are have done research, or maybe they were a chronically ill patient who figured some things out and are sharing with other people. And like I said the other day, we need to bring all our medicine to the table.
Right, right,
And so I love that.
right. Even with the Healing Hypertension Summit, I've tried to do the same thing. So like
Yes.
one of the very first interviews that was released, he's not a practitioner. He's actually a guy that I met when I was still in Arizona, who at the age of 29 was diagnosed with kidney failure, not kidney disease, but kidney failure, because at 22 he developed hypertension, apparently because of a automobile accident he was in.
Mm-hmm.
And the story, it irritates me. It really bothers me. I didn't even realize this part about his story. So he was in this motor vehicle accident. He developed hypertension. He was in the military. They'd given him hypertension medications. He was taking them like a good soldier.
Yeah.
And he was doing his doctor's appointments. Nobody told him that his kidneys were declining. Nobody told him. A year after he got out of the military, he said he went to the hospital, and because he thought he had bronchitis, kidney failure, heart disease, because of the kidney failure and the hypertension.
At 29 years old.
At 29. Right. And so now 22 years later, he's, been on dialysis. He's had kidney
Wow.
failure. Like, these stories are powerful.
Yeah.
And for him to still be alive, for him to still, to talk to, for me to talk to his wife and to hear how his children have dealt with a dad who's on dialysis all of their lives. And for him to say, like he did Dancing with the Stars, like those stories are powerful.
Yeah.
I like to bring a mix of people with stories and doctors with stories, just
Yes.
so that people can relate to it. Again, practically healthy.
Yes. Because we all have a piece of the elephant.
Absolutely.
And the other, by the same token, you have also spent some time telling people, while you're also saying, we do need to hear these stories. We need to respect the stories of the patients and take in that part of the equation. You also spend time talking about the other part of the equation, which is all of the time and energy and study that you have spent and put into learning particular subject matter, and that you do have something to offer in that equation. And so it's not a one-way thing. It's not one way doctor telling the patient what to do, and it's also not the patient telling the doctor what to do. That it really has to be a partnership in order to work.
Right, right. In order
Yeah.
for any of us to be truly well, we have to be active participants in our own health. And in order to do that, we have to meet each other somewhere
Yes.
and then start working together as a unit. And um, I feel like I'm too lax with people, but I mean, honestly, that's the goal, because I don't want to have to do all the work for you.
Yeah.
Like I tried that, and that made me very angry when I was
Yes.
doing more work for them, when I wanted their health to be great more than they did.
Yeah.
That was painful for me
Yeah.
to let that go. So you have to let me know that you're invested, because I'm going to invest. If we're in this together, I'm going to invest, and I need you to do it too.
Yeah. And the reality is, I mean, I know this is probably the same has happened to you. When a family member wants to drag another family member to you, and that family member doesn't want to be there. And I have to say, it has to come from that person. As much as I hear you that you're very worried, and I'm worried too, based on what you're telling me. However, I, I'm not going to see someone who doesn't want to be there, because and not it's only because I know that I already have been down that road, and it won't work, and I don't want to waste anybody's money or time, or my time in that case. But really, it's money and time if the person has to be in.
Yeah, yeah. That
Yeah.
I actually got a message from a distant family member. So it's like my grandmother's sister's daughter. So one of my cousins that I've never really met,
Yeah.
inboxed me recently and was like, my brother is hypertensive and he has diabetes and it's uncontrolled, and they're thinking about cutting off his leg. I think that's what she said. And I really want him to talk to you. Does he want to talk to me?
That's the question.
If
Yeah.
he doesn't, it's
Yeah.
not like I'm still happy to talk to him.
Yeah.
Know that, as much as your intentions are great and as much as my effort will be great,
Yeah.
he's going to be able to do the work.
Yeah. And that may sound hard, but it's like after you've done it many, many times, thinking somebody's gonna, it has to come from them. You mentioned the Healing Hypertension Holistic Health Summit, which you have put together. And for those of you who are watching on social media, there's a link, and I think I have it in there. Yeah. And so you can click on it, and you can still sign up. It still has a few days left.
Yeah, so the official last day is today, but we're going to open it up for 4 more days for replay. So
Okay.
those people who are just now joining, or people who were already doing it and missed some sessions, they can go back and rewatch those.
Okay. And there's over 20 speakers. Yeah.
Yeah, there's 20 of us. But
Okay. And can you tell us a little bit about some of them? Just some of the. Uh-huh.
yeah, so like I said, the Mr. Raymond Scott, who is the kidney failure survivor. We have let's say today, we have actually 3 naturopaths, because that's not always the case. We had your classmate a couple days ago, Dr. Madi Brown. He's talking about
Yes.
um, stress in the heart. The connection between stress, hypertension, and your heart.
Yes.
Dr. Beverly Yates is talking about sleep and how it connects to naturopathic medicine, how it connects to hypertension. Um, Dr. Devin Brown talks about preventing kidney disease. So, she teaches what lab tests to look at, basically empowers the patient so
Yes.
that you know what tests to look at, and what to look for, so that you don't just say, you don't get the diagnosis, oh, you have kidney disease, you're at stage 4. Well, you could
Yes.
have told 1 through 3 when
Yeah.
it's time to do something. I have an atmospheric chemist. I love saying that. An atmospheric chemist talking about the environment, the air, and how that affects our health.
Pollution.
There are people talking about fasting, hyperaldosteronism.
Mm-hmm.
I have someone talking about men's health, women's health, as it relates to hypertension. So it's really a wide range of topics.
That's fantastic. And it's Father's Day, so men's health. This is obviously applicable to everybody. But we want to. I was joking with Tursha when we picked this day to do it. I said, well, we'll just. You used to be on a men's health show also.
Yes.
Yeah, and I've done a lot of men's health also, and it's important because sometimes our men are the hardest ones sometimes to get to go to the doctor, and so that all this conversation before about being dragged, you know, um, maybe if some of the men and those who are fathers, um, and those who have they could maybe see some of these. There's a lot more of these conversations going on. There's also important to note there's a naturopathic physicians of color group. We're going to put the link to that also because very active. There have been many conversations that are, I think, really helpful and inviting to people to understand what they might expect um, if they do decide to go and do something about their
Yeah.
health and be an active partner. So sometimes it's just the fear of the unknown, right? Like not knowing what or a bad experience in the past.
Right.
So I think amplifying some of these resources can help that also.
Right. Right. Yeah, it really is hard to get men to come in. So trying to find the language that men hear
Yes.
has been a challenge. Which is why I have the person talking about men's health. Specifically, I have her talking about erectile dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
So let's be honest, men will go to the doctor if something is falling off or if their man parts are not working.
Yes.
So let me just talk about how hypertension affects the man parts. So women are the same. A lot of women, they are vain, beauty driven. And so a lot of our colleagues will do more aesthetic medicine. This is how to get your skin beautiful. This is how to get your hair beautiful. Oh, and let me slide some naturopathic medicine in there. Wow. So it really is meeting people where they are, but that conversation is really hard for us to get men involved with sometimes.
Yeah. So that's great. So the Healing Hypertension Holistic Health Summit has, for any of you who are listening out there, and maybe you're concerned for yourself or for maybe one of the men, since that's what we're talking about right now, maybe have it on loud, have it on your computer, put the volume up, run it loud, and see if they get interested in something.
Erectile dysfunction.
Erectile dysfunction, like real loud.
Yes.
And hypertension, yes. So that's going on, and I mean, that's just an amazing resource because some of these things are so out of reach for people, and I think also with COVID-19 and with the quarantines, this allows for people to be able to just access it at home and makes it really accessible. So thank you. I know that's a lot of work to put together, so thank you for doing that.
Know how timely it was going to be.
Yeah.
I had no clue. Like, I'm sure I hadn't really been as close, as in touch with people as you have, because I know you have stories, but I can only imagine that with the stress, worry, anger, fear, anxiety, sadness, claustrophobia that we have been feeling as a country,
Yeah.
as a world these last 4 months, I can only imagine how much people's blood pressures are spiking.
They are.
Don't have high blood pressure, I assume have high blood pressure. So I'm encouraging everybody that's listening to make sure that you are checking your blood pressure. If you have never been diagnosed with hypertension, check it. Check it at least once a month, once every couple weeks. Check it. Go to CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, sit in their machine and get your blood pressure checked.
And that's another thing that you do. I noticed you put it up there. Have you checked your blood pressure today? You put up. You're like an app. You're like a reminder app. I'm like, we need like a Dr. Tursha reminder app because you just pop up, and I'll be honest, sometimes I check my own because you reminded me. Okay, so you're probably keeping me alive too.
Good. Sometimes I'm doing it for myself and I'm like, oh, let me breathe and drop my shoulders. Okay, let me post that because I needed to do what somebody probably did. So
I know. I've heard you talk about that too.
Drop your shoulders, breathe. Now exhale.
Yes.
Shoulders support. Yeah, it's necessary.
It's a Dr. Tursha app. I think about it. I mean, it's really nice because it'll just fly by my scroll with all of the other
that comes across.
And sometimes, I mean, the shoulders will be up here, like you're like this and you're breathing shallow, like, and then Dr. Tursha puts up a little like, drop it, relax it.
Let me post that right now since we're talking.
Yeah, go ahead and show them what you do. So, which is another reason why you should be followed on Instagram, right?
Yes.
You're at Dr. Tursha?
Everything is at Dr. Tursha.
Okay.
I remember everything.
All right.
Everything is at DRTURSHA.
Perfect. So yeah, those little reminders that Dr. Tursha app is probably keeping me alive also. In terms of COVID-19, so I know that you are working right now as an educator, as an author, as a speaker, doing these, really providing these life-saving resources for people. But you're there in New Orleans, Louisiana, and at least early on, at least after Mardi Gras, that was one of the, there was a spike in cases. Can you tell us anything just on the ground, like I like hearing from like people, because there's just so much misinformation, and I just want to know, like, how are you feeling? Your friends and family, are they following precautions? Is it just to the wind? What's going on over there in NOLA?
Family. In my particular family, I'll say the elders of my family. So my parents, my aunties and uncles, for the most part, because they are elders and they know that they're in their higher risk category, and most of them have those underlying conditions. Mm-hmm. So, and New Orleans is a big hugging town, and nobody's hugging these days, right? And so they'll come by, they'll sit outside in the backyard, 6 feet, 8 feet apart. So they're still trying to have that connection, because in the beginning there was none of that.
Yeah.
The younger people are not as cautious. And I think that's citywide, that they're not being as cautious. So yeah, and I know, just from listening to the mayor, I actually have to applaud the governor and the mayor of the governor of Louisiana and the mayor of the city, because they have been really on it. Like, they were like, we about to shut it down. I don't really care what y'all got to say. The mayor actually got on TV one day, because one of the neighboring towns was like, you need to open up the city again. And she was like, I will not be bullied. You will not bully me. We're going to follow the data and not the dates. Yeah. And, we're going to open it up when the numbers say that it's time. So I was like, okay, I applaud her for that. But, we're supposed to have entered phase 2 of reopening last week, I believe, but the numbers, right? And starting to see spikes and a couple of clusters again. So it's still kind of iffy. There have been some local doctors who, and the hospital, who've been passing out like masks. So yesterday, They were passing out like these masks, which was
Yes.
just to make sure that people actually are wearing masks, because that's a big thing, especially in a town that is predominantly African American and
Yeah.
has a lot of comorbid conditions.
Yes. So let's just talk about masks for 1 second. I know there's a lot of info about COVID-19, a lot of misinformation, and there's a lot of anger, and there's a lot of people trying to politicize it. And, the virus does not care about your politics.
Right.
It does not care that Texas and Louisiana have this imaginary dividing line, and that like when you leave Texas, you drop down and you go, doo, 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 doo. You come back and you go up. And
Well, y'all are not right. Exactly.
the asphalt, like the roads, like there's all these things that are like state specific. And the virus does not care. It does not care. It will travel where it wants to go. And really, this is that, okay, talking about that gap between the literature and, and the struggle, I think, for both healthcare providers to take in, all of us who are having to deal with it are taking in as much information. I struggled to get sleep in the first months because it was like in the middle of the night, you're just reading, what you can to keep people safe. But with that said, there's a gap between any information, any studies in an early pandemic, right? Because you don't know until after a year or two or more, really. And then the on the ground stuff. But one thing that I think coming full circle, because at first, the government's got it kind of all wrong, and even the public health people, they were panicked about there not being enough masks for healthcare professionals. And there should have been, and we're not going to go into that. But now they've come around, and pretty much everybody, except if you're trying to politicize this, really, keep your droplets to yourself, right? It's just, we don't have to argue about what kind of mask. Cloth masks can be rewashed. So meeting people where they are, they're not going to have N95s. They're not going to have surgical masks, but cloth masks are easy to make. And at least if both and all people are wearing, you can keep your droplets to yourself. And we know that reduces droplet transmission. At least we can do that, right?
Yeah. My elders used to always say, "Am better than Nan." Any is better than Am better than Nan. So like,
Am better than Nan.
Am better than Nan.
You need to put that little reminder daily.
If I knew how to spell "am," I would.
That's okay. That it don't have to be perfect. Just spell it. Yeah.
But yeah, the reality is that, for one, there's still a lot that we don't know. I mean, we know the nature of viruses in general.
Yes.
But we don't know the nature of this one. And so everybody's doing the best they can, right? At least the scientists that I've seen.
Yes.
They're doing the best that they can with the information that they had already, and the information that they're gathering on a rapid basis.
Yes.
And one of the things that I have to remind people of is, yes, they said something yesterday and they're changing their story today, but you have to understand that all of this information is new.
Exactly.
So in real time, like you are in the middle of history.
Exactly.
So with that being said, protect yourself the best way you can. No, this mask is not the best mask, but it's going to do a lot more than you not wearing it. Right?
Right.
It's going to do a lot more because at least you are aware of it.
Yeah.
And you're aware of it, and you're doing your part, right?
Yes.
When you sneeze, you cover your mouth with the fold of your elbow. That's not going to stop all of the sneeze, but you're going to stop some of it.
Right. Again, it's about harm reduction. It's not going to be perfect. It's practically life. It's not perfect. And I feel the same way about the prevention advice for the pandemic. It's like, you're going to have to do what you can do. It's so funny because naturopathic medicine, I think we're the best at individualized medicine. We're focused on, we understand that what's best for you may not be what's best for me. Even if it's what's best for my sister or my mother, my grandfather, I may have an individual difference that makes all the difference for my health care. With that said,
today, is not necessarily what was good for you 3 months ago, pre-pandemic, or what will be good for you in December.
Exactly. Timing is everything as well. Um, and so we're very good at I think, sorting through all those individual differences: timing, dosing, frequency. Yes, you tried it before, but you didn't try it this way. You know, don't discard options because it was you actually, and doing it now is not the same as doing it 6 years ago. All of those things. And yet in a pandemic, it's population medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to switch hats a little bit. I mean, you do always keep in mind, okay, what are the individual risk factors for that person if you're caring for that person?
Mm-hmm.
But in a larger sense, just talking to general populations, it's like you have to just reduce the risk the best you can. That's what you do. And so I don't know. I think anytime we're speaking right now, I've just been trying to at least say that much about COVID-19 to kind of keep it to that. Even if that's one thing that people do, we could really significantly get through this.
My biggest thing would be wear your mask so that you're not transmitting, and you're decreasing the amount you transmit and you're decreasing the amount that someone transmits to you. And do all the things to make yourself as healthy as possible. Like, there
Yes.
point is no cure. But if you're eating fried chicken, fried shrimp, bread, drinking sodas, beer, whatever all the time, your immune system is not going to be able to handle whatever comes.
Yeah.
So if you can start doing the things that we've usually been saying all the time: drink adequate water, get adequate sleep, go poop, eat a couple vegetables every now and again, do those things. If you want to take some supplements, take some supplements, but do those things, especially now, so that you are at least actively trying to reduce your risk. I can't guarantee that you're not going to get it, but I can guarantee that if you're doing those things, your body is going to be able to fight harder if those things come at you. And that's all any of us can do. That's all vaccines can do, is to help your body fight harder when the thing comes available.
Yeah. I mean, and knowing, that it's pointing toward that there may be, that COVID-19 might have some lasting effects, even with people who survive. So let's say you survive. I mean, a lot of people fight over the death rate and this, that, and the other, but there's also what we call morbidity, which is like how you're affected, not just the death, but you say you live through it, and then, there's some evidence that it may be affecting blood vessels. Well, the more we can do to help you with your cardiovascular health now, give yourself all the chances you can. Same with blood sugar, right? Like, if you everybody people with who are struggling with diabetes know when your blood sugar is higher, you're at more risk for infections,
Yep.
all infections. So getting that under control as best you can, work with somebody, just helps out, as yeah.
And I just recently read somebody's post on Facebook about they're afraid, or they're like, I hope we don't have a second wave. We're still in the middle of the first wave. We haven't gotten rid of the first wave.
And that hasn't ended yet.
And probably will spike again later in the fall, just because that's what viruses tend to do. But
Yeah.
we're not done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that, at least it feels like some of the people around you are taking their precautions, and they have you as their app to remind them to do so.
Mhm.
I wanted to ask you also, we are in this, we're in we're in the middle of two pandemics, right? We have the pandemic of COVID-19, and we have it's kind of like a pandemic. Viruses have always been with us, but this is like a moment when it just reaches a fever pitch, and it reaches just a level that where it forces behavior to change.
Mhm.
And so we're also in a pandemic of racism, racial hostility, racial bias, um, in every field. And I guess as horrible as it has been, and as painful nationally and globally, There's also the reckoning, the way that people are being forced. Many fields are being forced to stop, take a pause, and really dig deeper, and look a little deeper, and try to see what can be done to really move forward in a different way, right? So, you're a naturopathic doctor, you're a woman, you're a Black woman doctor. Um, just what what has being in these two pandemics right now, like from your point of view, what do you feel like is something that is good coming out of this, and what do you see are the obstacles that really need to be exposed, and really we need to all of us here and get on it, step on the gas and like make it happen.
One of the good things is that things are coming to light more. So, you know, we women, we Black folks, we people of color in general have often been talked down to, demonized, pushed aside when we bring up certain topics. Oh, that's not real, that's not
Yeah.
true, that's not happening. Oh, you're over exaggerating. Like you can't have like half the whole millions of people exaggerating the same story. First of all,
Right.
it doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of these stories are now coming to light, right? And so unfortunately, people are seeing them for the first time, whereas we're saying, no, this is not new. This is what's been happening. It's
Mm-hmm.
coming to your eyes, but we've been seeing it. So the good thing is that more people are becoming more aware. The problem that I can see is that people will get fatigued of it quickly, or they'll make their stance in solidarity, and
Mm-hmm.
it's all for show, and then they'll go back to their normal lives
Right.
in a few weeks. So, but that's like the good thing, and one of the big problems that I can see is that it'll get swept under the rug, and like the media. I noticed some people saying that the media has already stopped talking about the protests as much. They're still happening, but because nobody's looting, because nobody is coming in,
Burning something down. Mm-hmm.
they're not getting as much hype.
Mm-hmm.
So that would lead people to believe that it's dying down. No, that is media controlled, not
Yes.
to show that
Mm-hmm.
it's actually supposed to be peaceful, and that if you didn't have these agitators around, it would be
Yeah.
peaceful, and people are trying to get a point across and trying to get things changed.
Yes.
So those are some of the good and bad about the whole situation.
So, in applying naturopathic thought to this, like to society, right? Because really we're individuals, and we're also like a greater body on this planet together, right? So, applying naturopathic principles, anytime we sweep something back under the rug, it's going to come back to bite you.
Come back stronger.
Can I just say on your ass? I can say that, right? I'm on the internet. I can say what I want. It's going to come back and bite you on your ass. And in a bad way.
Yes.
And so this is in terms of a societal illness. This is something that is never going to go away until it is fully faced, till all the band-aids are ripped off,
Yep.
till the denial is over, and 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 the thing is all parties have to be willing to come to the table and stop the stop the harmful activity, because this is not like an old wound. This is a current, ongoing, damaging. It's, if you think of us as one body, it's a self-inflicted wound, right? If you think about who's inflicting it to whom in terms of groups, then obviously there people of color are being harmed and wounded, and in particularly anti-Black racism is particularly gruesome, and let's just call it what it is, and it has to be eradicated. And the only way to eradicate it is to eradicate it, just like when we talk about the body and we say, we don't just treat you come in, we're not going to just treat your shoulder pain. You also have a liver, you have kidneys, you have anxiety. We see the body as a whole, as holistic. That's what you do. And at the same way, we need to start thinking about society, I think, naturopathically. in that way, because we have to literally look at every system. Every system needs a review of systems.
Yes.
And it can't be like a timeline of the news. It doesn't work for your body, and it doesn't work for society.
Right.
I don't care what the media says, turn it off. The truth is, we have to investigate every system, whatever system you're involved in, whether it's you yourself, your relationship, your family members, your church, your society. How are they participating in this? Rip off all the band-aids. And until we do that and don't leave a system unturned, because we know what that looks like when in the health department, like you started off talking about the 29-year-old who his kidneys were failing and nobody told him. Well, that's what's happening here.
Yep.
And so we have to address all of those systems. So I hear you when you say that, the big obstacle is it's turning back away, going back to whatever normal life is. The only little hope I have, I'm a long time activist who didn't have a lot of hope until very recently. I'll be honest.
Congratulations for getting to.
I have the only reason I have a little hope is that I feel like something broke.
Yeah, this definitely feels different.
I feel like something broke, and I keep saying, and maybe if I keep saying it, maybe it's what I want to believe, but I think we're not going back. I feel like something broke, and I feel like I know, but I'm going to keep saying it because it's what needs to happen. So anybody who's listening, and if you're already, assessing your participation in how we are creating these sick societies, don't take the importance away from it. Don't let the importance fade. You got to keep your foot on the gas. Keep it going until we, little by little. It's not tomorrow. I love for it to not be us to have not one more, all of those things, but we're going to have to just make it happen. And when a lot of people make little changes, that adds up to a big change.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the biggest things about being practically healthy is making the little changes that are actually practical for you so that they become habitual, they become a part of your tradition. It's
Yes.
about changing habits and traditions. And
Yes.
that is individually, that is in your family, in your community, and globally. Like if you start to change your mindset, you
Yes.
start to change your habits and your traditions little by little, then you start to actually be healthy on a regular
Yes.
basis, because that's what
Yes.
you do. And that's the other meaning of practically healthy. Like
Yes.
health is just, I'll do that anyway. Like I
Yes.
always wake up and drink 2 cups of water. I don't. I do sometimes. I don't. I'm just use that as an example. I don't want people to think that I'm perfect. As soon as you wake up, you drink 2 glasses of water to start your day, then you don't have to think about it because that's just your knee-jerk reaction. Just like
Yeah.
they wake up and they start stretching. That's just what they do.
Yes.
And so if you wake up with gratitude and you learn to see everybody as a human and not
Start there.
or anything like that, and you actually make it a habit to listen to a person's experiences and not dismiss them because they aren't your experiences, right? Then things can okay with finding a person or a group that you trust and speaking about the things you don't know anything about or the questions that you might have, then it becomes easier. Are you having
I think you're cutting out a little bit.
It's about to start storming here, so
Is that what it is? Okay.
let me put the microphone in.
Were we hearing thunder?
Is this better?
Yes. Were we hearing thunder?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's what it was. I was like, I didn't know if I was losing you, but that was thunder. Okay.
No, that was thunder.
All right. You brought the thunder.
Yeah. Yes, that's what I do.
Okay.
But yeah, that's basically it. In every aspect of life, we have to start making those changes, but make them lasting changes so that they aren't just a part of what we do. And hopefully, as you're feeling, something did break, so that more people have things, in their consciousness, in their awareness, so that they make those efforts little by little. and have it become more habitual, that they believe that all of us have valid experiences that you don't necessarily have, and that each of us brings something to the table, and we all have value, and we all have differences. You know what?
Yes.
Sidebar, I cannot stand when people say I don't see color.
Oh, I know.
I can't stand that. You need to see this. This is beautiful. I love this right here. There's all
Exactly.
this ethnicity. You need to see that.
Why would you want to miss that? You know?
Because part of it, I mean,
Yeah.
like walking through the world as a woman or as a child, you know, this shade, I had certain experiences because of it.
Yeah.
It created who I am. It created my view of myself, of my family, of the world. You know,
Yes.
some things I'm still working through. Some things, you know, I am, you know, still, you know, I love. But that is part of who I am. And if you don't see that, you don't really see me.
Yes.
I don't believe that not seeing color is the way to go. I believe seeing color, but working through your prejudices, because we all have prejudices, like be honest, you know, we all have them, but working through your prejudices so that they are not hindering the conversations that you have with people. They're not hindering how you work with people.
Yeah.
And just, you know, acknowledging the reality of these are my prejudices, these are my biases, but this is still the person I'm working with, and this, you know, let me do what I need to do.
Yes. And we talked, we talked about anti-Black racism being particularly hideous and needing to be singled out of race, that there's racism. And at the same time, I think another thing is that I think our biases can hide, like even people who've worked really hard to rid themselves of, say, particular biases that they know are just screwed up that in society, and they've worked really hard, but then there's another one that'll sneak in somewhere, and like in medicine, we talked about like bias against people with mental illness, that people, obesity, like people who come in, or just women in general who are not believed. And then if you're a Black woman, we're seeing the statistics on, just add those two things together, and you're just going to go home and quite possibly die because nobody believed anything you had to say.
Yeah.
So it's really, and those things can get compounded. So it's very important, I think, even for people who, because I've heard a lot of people who, maybe they think they've worked on stuff, but no, you keep working, because yeah.
Yeah, it's a continual conversation with yourself.
Continual.
And one of the most profound experiences that I had that I never really shared with anybody, so this is like the first time I'm saying it. I had a student who was a Muslim male. He was Middle Eastern background. When he walked in the room, he had the typical archetype of what people call a terrorist or a dangerous Middle Eastern, Muslim man. And so when he walked into the room, I was like, right? Like I immediately, all of that prejudice came through. I didn't act on it. I didn't say anything. I treated him like my student, but I actually had to check that, because at that moment I realized that was in there.
Yeah.
He's one of the sweetest people I've ever met. And I know that if I called him today, he would do whatever he can, because he just seemed to have a heart of gold.
Yeah.
But that bias was there. And I know where it came from. It came from all of the images that we see all the time.
Yeah.
That the person who looks like him, who prays like him, is evil.
And will
that's
hurt
just
you.
not the case.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
he's looking to harm me. And, I had to check that. And so it really is a constant conversation. And all of us have it. All of us have biases about something. And, it's not that having the biases in and of itself is bad or evil, because we all have them. It's how you act and respond to it. Do you act on those biases, or do you work through them so that you can be better and still do what you need to do and not show those biases to other people?
And just like you said, though, it's like, so because you had the self-reflection to say, wait a minute, and you had the experience, right? Because that's the other thing, is that, you have to have human experiences to understand that media depictions are caricatures and stereotypes. And so once you had, and thank you for sharing that, because, I think that's important that we do. It's like, once you catch yourself, then the next time around, it's not just about keeping your bias to yourself. It's that you're kind of you're like, wait a minute, don't make that assumption that you're in some sort of danger. You are cutting yourself off from literally the energetics of a beautiful potentially relationship, you know? Because you know what? I think if you're ultimately, if you're in danger from anybody,
Mhm.
you're gonna know soon enough. Like
Yeah.
I think we don't have to create this pre plexiglass around ourselves, you know, like just I think that's part of what we have to dismantle
Yeah.
is this idea that we're going to be harmed, um, and just trust your own self that if you're in a situation where it's a dangerous situation, which it could be, you know, rarely things do happen, but you're going to know, and it's not going to be based on some sort of like preconceived notion of what that person looks like or where they came from.
Right, right. I have
Yeah.
one more story because this just popped into my head
Yeah, yeah.
about my preconceived bias
We're
that
the
I had to
boss of
work with.
us.
We are the boss of us. Um, my uncle took me to a pageant, a trans pageant one day, right?
Hmm.
And it was awesome. Like that was my first or second one. I don't know. It was a lot of fun, you know, watching all the pageantry and the gowns and the performances. It was great.
Yeah.
We were at the end of it, and you know, they were mingling because they knew some people in the pageant, and I was just kind of looking around marveling at all of the spectacle, and I
Yeah.
had to go to the bathroom, and it was a bunch of trans women by the women's bathroom, and I walked up and I said, again, media bias, them folks ain't coming for me.
No.
They don't want nothing I got. They might want some tips. They might say, oh, I like that feature, let me go get me one. Them people don't want me.
No, not at
But
all.
again, you know, I wanted to bring that up just because that was a point of real self-reflection for
Yeah.
me and me checking my bias and realizing again, the media has sold us on a lot of dumb shit
Hmm.
that is unnecessary. Again, these women they didn't want me. Like nothing about nothing about me is what they want.
No.
And I'm sitting here like I can't go to the bathroom because go
And that's
be.
great. And so it's a call to self-reflection, you know, and one of the things that just occurred to me when you were talking is that, you know, it's also, um, you don't, you don't even necessarily have to be a part of a different demographic. You can have biases against your own self.
Yeah,
The media and the images have sold us to hate our own selves as
absolutely.
well. And that has to be rooted out because you see how we also participate you see women raising men to be misogynist, to be sexist, you know, against their girlfriends, their wives, their, you know, and I'm not blaming them completely, but you see how we participate, right? We participate. I remember, I'll just say this, I'm a lesbian, and when I first the first time I ever went to a gay bar was in the late 80s.
Mhm.
I'm also outing myself how old I am. So anyway, I was in the late 80s, and I myself am, you know, coming to terms with that and all of the like talk about like the mind trip that has been done on you and how, you know, how you're going to burn in hell and you're just wrong, you know, in every possible way.
Right.
You're like
Right.
you're like a Mr. Potato Head with like an ear on your face and you know, like you just put together wrong, right? So
Correct.
the first time I walked in and I saw, you know, like two women dancing together, I got nauseated. Like any other like person who would be, and that was my own talk about having to like work through some stuff because I was very religious at the time. I was very, you know, brought up very Catholic, and it was I couldn't deal with the cognitive dissonance,
Yeah.
even though intellectually I knew that you know we're not created in ways that are wrong. I had already come to that, but viscerally in my body, and so that's another piece of it too, is that like sometimes when people are raised with racism and they can intellectually come to a point where it's like, no, that's not that is wrong. But sometimes that you still have to root out that visceral and it can be done. But it
Yeah.
takes the work. Anyway, I just wanted to say.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point. Like any work that you do around changing mindsets, changing thought patterns, changing habits, emotions, all of that stuff, I think it really does. It comes in two parts.
Mm-hmm,
Mentally, you can know it,
mm-hmm.
like you can logic it, but then deep down inside, there's still something to work on. So
Yeah.
if we can kind of keep that in mind, I think we'll be able to do better work,
Yes.
because we understand that logicking something is one part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then having that logic seep into the deep down parts of you to really, really get it is
Yeah.
a completely different thing.
Yes. And that's the naturopathic, like all systems review. This is not a rooting out racism is not a head thing.
Right.
It's not just a matter of saying the right things and even, having a philosophy that reflects, the humanity, the true humanity of all people. You have to do the work to that other review of systems, all the other systems. Like, how do
Right.
you actually respond? How do you feel? How, all of those things. And the good news is that it can be done. It sometimes can take years of work, but it can be done.
Yeah.
So a little bit of hope. That's a little bit of hope. Like, I think something's broke. I think we're gonna get through it, and it's gonna
We get a
take
little
all
bit
of us.
further. We're getting a little bit further toward the goal. So at least there's that. At least there's that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if we see it backsliding, we're gonna have to push even harder. And um,
Yep.
so that's good. And so you told me, okay, so you have the Black Family Healthypedia,
Let me
which
show
is,
you because I have
yes,
the books right
please
here.
show us. Please show us.
So this is the Black Family Healthypedia.
Yes.
And
By
it
and
was
for.
right, right. It's written by four of us. So Black female naturopathic doctors. Um, One actually happened to be a student at the time. So I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
But it basically talks about some of the things that, Black people, like we as a society endure,
Yeah.
but speaking the language that people understand, speaking
Yes.
directly to Black people in terms Black people understand,
Yes.
with statistics that focus on us so that hopefully we can connect with that population and help us to get out of some of the mire and muck that we're in.
Yes. Perfect. And then you told me that you're working on a new book.
Yes.
So
So
tell us about that one.
the next one is called the Black Woman's Health-O-Pedia. So we dig a little bit deeper into women's health, and it comes, from the angle of Black women,
Yes.
Black women being um, the statistically, like
Yeah.
statistically most educated group of people in this country, yet we are the least respected and the least heard, right? Um, Story after story coming out from every financial demographic about Black women not being listened to,
Yes.
like Black women almost dying because we're not being taken seriously,
Yes.
or, Black women having a higher incidence of this thing or that thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, we talk about a lot of the women's health concerns, um, gearing it toward Black women.
Mm-hmm. Very good. And is there any projected date that we'll be able to get our hands on that?
No, because my original projected date was like October. I was going to push everybody to write, and we get it out in October. But then coronavirus happened.
Yes.
And I was like, you know what? I'm not trying to stress myself or anybody else out. So at the earliest, it'll be like December, but I don't know that we want to necessarily deal with the holidays. So it'll probably be closer to like January, February.
Okay, 2021. So
Yeah, more than
okay.
likely.
Okay. And given how time runs all crazy, that'll be like tomorrow.
It'll be like day after tomorrow, right? Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
We'll be like, did you see that was like 6 months or something? Like, yeah, it'll be
Didn't we
like
just
day
talk
after
about
tomorrow.
this?
I
Yeah.
know. Okay, great. And so I just want to reiterate that if you're listening and you're out there and you have these books are being written so that people can understand them, and they're great resources. But also, I would also suggest that if you have a library, if you have a school, if you have, if you're, teaching, and if you're a healthcare practitioner, you should have these books. You should have these books because maybe you need to know how to learn to speak to people who come in to see you.
Yeah.
To Black patients, you need to get educated, and the best way to get educated, I think, is you're getting both. You're getting the information from other healthcare practitioners, from Black doctors, and also a way to speak to people that in language that's better understood. And I'm not saying you're going to suddenly know how to code switch, but at least you can start somewhere and have the exposure. And thirdly, you can support financially a Black author,
Yeah.
namely you, and have that be, because that's the other part of this, is that throughout all these years, there is it's very skewed toward authors who are, talking down to the Black community, and writing for the Black community. And so, and in medical schools, how many books are written by Black authors? So let's change that. Let's change that starting now. So I'm putting that out there, for those of you who have libraries, colleges, you're teaching, and for other doctors to have it in your office. So I'm just so happy. So this is a global health minute that is an hour and 15 minutes long. Just like your book's going to come out day after tomorrow. This is like global health minute.
Yes.
But I think it's a minute that has been just kind of packed with all kinds of information. I feel like, I knew that even after all these years, we could just like jump in and flow like water, like Bruce Lee said.
Yeah.
And it all kind of comes back, because ultimately that training, that naturopathic training to look at things from a whole systems perspective, really does allow you to kind of swim around the whole body, and in back of, you don't ever really get lost, because you come back, right? And so it comes full circle.
It really does. It really does. I am grateful for it. Of course, it's been challenging. I'm sure you know that.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
been challenging, but overall, I don't know that I would have changed anything except maybe having had more business classes.
Yes.
Other than that, like I'm happy to be. You talk about that gap between the patient and the medicine, the medical establishment, and that's where I want to fill in. Like I feel like that's my role, is to do that, filling in the gap. And I love it when people come and say, that was great information, I needed that, I didn't realize how that thing would affect me.
Yes.
Let me reassess some things in my life. Let me start working on this. Aha. Those things, bring me joy, because people are actually hearing it. They're seeing it, hearing it.
Yes. That is what you do. That is that's what you've been doing for over a decade.
Yes.
So tell people, so we'll put what is your website? What's the best way for, like, what's the one stop that we can find all things for you? Like, where can people go?
drtursha.com.
Okay.
drtursha.com. You can find out about my books. You can find out about the summit. You can contact me through the contact me page. Occasionally, I'll write a blog post. When I start my blog again, that'll be there. But that'll be sort of the one-stop shop on how you can contact me.
Okay. Anything else that we haven't covered in our minute? Because we're the boss of us. We can go on for another 2 hours if we want to. Anything else you want to say to people?
The only thing is, the most pressing thing right now is, if you have high blood pressure, if you know somebody who has high blood pressure, if you have a family history of high blood pressure, or if you have been for the last 4 months stressed, anxious, sad, depressed, any of those emotions, feel like you're cooped up, one thing is, take your blood pressure. and take it relatively regularly. You don't necessarily have to do it every day unless it's elevated,
Mm-hmm.
but more often than not. So if that's once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month, at least take it and don't wait years. So that'll be one, is to take your blood pressure. And the other thing is, go ahead and sign up for the summit. Like I said before, today is the last official day of the summit, but for starting tomorrow and for 4 days, we're going to have replay days where you can watch all of the summit recordings without any time constraints. Well, the constraint will be that it's 4 days. So, get that information. It's 20 lectures about holistic ways that you can control and heal your high blood pressure. And, for many people, that might mean that they can come off medications. And that would make me happy, is to have people to sign up, check your emails, because everything will be coming through email, watch the lectures, get some information, and start acting on it, and make it part of your life, make it a practical part of your life.
Practical. Do you have a recommendation? And of course, I don't get anything out of this, but I recommend there's an Omron is the company, and there's a wrist for home use, like the blood pressure cup for people to use to get a hold of at home. That one has been lately the one I have recommended. It's kind of affordable, and it seems to be pretty accurate for a wrist model. Some of them weren't as good in the past. Which one do you recommend to your patients, or do you
I've actually never, I'm like, just get it done.
just get it, just make
Usually
practical?
what I'll say, right, just get one and take it with you at your next doctor's appointment,
Mm-hmm.
so that you can take it with that and
Check
compare
it.
it to what they have, so that
Very
you
good
can
point.
get the checks and balances. But no, just buy one,
Just
borrow one.
whatever you can get a hold of.
Yes, exactly.
Good point. And what you were saying there at the end is make sure that it's you take it so that it's not off. It's not giving you a false reading. Like you can check it with your doctor. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Very practically healthy, not perfectly healthy, practically healthy.
Exactly.
I have enjoyed this so much. I think you just added some years to my life just talking to me.
Yay. I love talking to you.
We're so honored that you're part of our VoxFem Health Minute.
Yeah. Minute.
So my next challenge is ending this, figuring out how to do it right. But I just want to thank you, Dr. Tursha Hamilton. I want to thank everyone who's here watching on social media, and I also want to tell your friends we're gonna upload this. You'll have it, and we'll have it. We'll have it on VoxFem. I'll have it on my Dr. Annette D'Armata page, Instagrams, all those things, so people can watch it afterwards as well. Because there's a lot of things going on, and it's Father's Day, but afterwards we can definitely watch. drtursha.com. We are voxfem.org. It's voxfem.org. I'm Dr. Annette D'Armata, and we wish you a happy Father's Day, and we wish you a happy solstice, and much love, and be practically healthy. That's our message for today.
Yes. Ashe. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.